Well, we're back at BioPharm America 2015. I'm Joe Haas from Informa Business Intelligence, and I'm really glad to be joined at this time by Chris Viehbacher, who is now managing partner at Gurnet Point Capital. You're going to be speaking at the plenary session today, and the topic at the plenary is some of the key executives in the industry who've moved from big to small. Jeremy Levin told us that that's kind of a trend and told us why. What's your take on that topic, that issue, why that's happening?
Well, Jeremy says trend. I'm happy to be a trendsetter. I think that for me, what was really interesting was to just be able to focus on science, medicine, building companies. You know, when you're running one of these big companies, there's so many different stakeholders. You're traveling all over. You can't really focus on any one thing.
Yeah.
And what I really like is bringing medicines to patients, and this is a way of being able to do that and not have to be distracted with everything else.
Okay. Tell us what Gurnet Point Capital is.
So Gurnet Point is, first that's for those of you not local, this is actually a point in Plymouth Bay, so the Mayflower sailed right by there.
Okay.
It's founded by Ernesto Bertarelli, who sold Serono, the family business, a number of years ago. And he's created a number of funds, and this is his global healthcare fund that we've created here in Boston, Cambridge. We have an initial capital allocation of $2 billion.
Yeah.
We're a little different than most funds in that we aim to be business builders. We have to be proactive investors, so we're not likely to be one of a syndicate in a Series C. It could be startup, it could be taking public companies private, so it's kind of a quasi-venture PE firm. So we're a little different than everybody else. One of the nice things is that we're very long-term capital. So a lot of companies have to tailor their strategy to the investment time horizon.
Yeah.
We actually are looking to build companies over time, and we may never sell them. We may sell them, but only if it's right for the company. So we're a little different. We also aim to bring some expertise. So we have capital, but I have a number of colleagues, and between us, we've seen just about every therapeutic category in the industry. We've developed drugs, we've launched them, we've seen them go off patents, and we think we can actually help management to run their businesses in a helpful way.
So I imagine you're on the board of some of the companies capitalized by Gurnet Point. Are you actually stepping in, or will you be stepping in as a CEO at any of them?
No.
Okay.
Not normally. I mean, I'll be on the board, we'll be helping, but with $2 billion to invest and we can raise some debt against that, that's going to be a pretty full-time occupation. The one exception is that we have actually founded a company within the fund. Founded that with Rob Armstrong, who created Chorus at Lilly. We've founded a new company called Boston Pharmaceuticals, and that aims to bring in molecules at an IND phase and carry them through to proof of concept. We'll put about 20 to 25 programs in the clinic. So I'm actually the CEO of that company, just because we are co-founders of that company.
What is the therapeutic focus there?
We're at the start fairly agnostic. We're mostly focused on mechanisms of action and those diseases where you've got a really nice hard endpoint in clinical trials. So it could be infectious disease, it could be rare diseases, it could be autoimmune diseases, probably not so much in CNS.
Okay. And Gurnet Point, on a larger basis, is also kind of agnostic about therapeutic emphasis?
Right. We're mostly interested, there's going to be three areas. Boston Pharmaceuticals is one. A second is really to buy smaller companies that don't have critical mass. That actually creates a commercial platform within the fund. And the other is that we'll be looking at some new emerging medical technologies, not necessarily med tech per se, but things like nanotechnology, 3D printing, diagnostics, IT health applications, some of the wearables. So that'll be a third area of focus for us.
Okay. Looking more at the industry as a whole, when you were the CEO at Sanofi, you were one of the deal makers that people tended to watch in the biopharmaceutical sector. We seem to be in a period right now of very hectic deal making. How do you assess the current environment, and are we headed toward a mega merger, do you think?
I don't know about a mega merger, largely because one of the things I have really come to believe in over time is that there are dyssynergies of scale in this industry.
Okay.
So as you get bigger, you don't necessarily get better. I think the two conditions, though, that are favorable to deal making are, first of all, we have very cheap debt capital.
Right.
So you can pretty much buy anything and it's going to be accretive. And the second is that you have a very favorable attitude on the part of investors to this. If you went back 4 or 5 years ago, investors were, just stick to the knitting, do small things. Your share price actually came under pressure if you're doing M&A. Now you do M&A and you get a benefit as both the acquirer and the seller on that. And so that's a very favorable environment. People are still going to be looking to fill their pipelines. If you're looking at having to transform, this is an industry that has to reinvent itself all the time. Technology changes, science changes. So how do you do that? Well, you can do that with the people you have, but that actually takes quite a long time. Some of these deals allow you to move into new directions in a much quicker way because you can go after those technologies. I mean, Genzyme, for example, was an important technology investment for Sanofi. We weren't really in biologics. We didn't really have a credible research and development base in the US. Building that from scratch would have taken so long.
Yeah.
And so some of these acquisitions are not just product-based, but actually help you to shape the strategy of the company.
So Genzyme was a key point of diversification for Sanofi. Do you see a lot or a fair amount of deal making that is not as well thought out, that maybe companies are almost doing something to have activity and get the investors excited?
In this business, it's so hard to know, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing a deal.
Yeah.
I think, for instance, AstraZeneca was criticized at the time for having made a big biotech deal, but actually, when you look at now Pascal Soriot presenting his pipeline, a lot is coming out of MedImmune these days. Some of these things have to mature. Some of the times, we're making bets and they don't play out. What people forget about this industry is, and that was particularly difficult to communicate in a big company, our business is inherently risky.
Yeah.
And when you're running one of these businesses, you have to be very focused on risk management. If you don't take risk, you will not advance. The question is, how do you manage the risk? And that's partly through a portfolio strategy. So you need to be in multiple therapeutic areas with multiple products. It means diversifying your sources of innovation. If you're just betting on your own teams all the time, you're not necessarily going to come up with innovation. So you have to mix sourcing of innovation from outside and from inside. But you have to accept that some of the things you're going to do are not going to work out. One of the most interesting parts was I used to look at Regeneron. They would have Fidelity as a big investor. Sanofi had Fidelity as a big investor, but it's not the same Fidelity. And the expectations when you're big pharma is suddenly on buybacks, on dividends. You're a big cap company. They want you to have this predictability and sustainability of results, but we're still an inherently risky business, and so it actually became more difficult to take on risk and do innovation because in biotech there's kind of an assumption that this is risky, and there's an assumption that it's going to take a while to see a payoff. The biotechs aren't so concerned about quarterly earnings, for example.
Right.
So, and that is, one of the other reasons why I was quite happy to shift, because if you really want to be involved in science and innovation, you actually have to have patient capital, and you can't be on that treadmill of quarterly earnings. That's why I think there's always going to be a role for both biotech and big pharma, but they really have to think about themselves in a complementary way instead of a competitive way.
Okay. We're really looking forward to the plenary, and thanks for stopping by today, Chris, and we'll be keeping an eye on Gurnet Point and on Boston Pharmaceuticals.
Great to
Thanks.
see you, Joe.
And we'll be back with more from BioPharm America as the conference goes on. Thanks for watching.